Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Dirt Nap City, the show about interesting dead people. We're going to talk about another dead person today who happened to be interesting at one point in his or her life. You ready to get going? Got some clues here for you. I actually don't have clues. I have a riddle kind of statement that I like
Why
to
do you
do.
always overachieve on these things? You're always coming up with something more clever than mine.
Well, because when I hear your clues, like he was the 7th of 9 kids, and then you pause for me, like that doesn't help you.
Well, if it had been okay, let's say it had
His
been.
father was an optometrist in Turkey.
No, his father was an architect in California, and he was the oldest of 3 boys and 6 children. Who would that be?
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be Greg Brady.
No, see, that's good. You're right. You got me on that one. But Greg Brady's not dead. Yeah, so we couldn't do it. All right, here we go. You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
This guy was born in 1883 in Mönchengladbach, Germany. Have you ever been there?
München is Munich.
Mönchengladbach.
Gladbach. I don't think so.
It's just outside of Düsseldorf.
Okay.
And they're known for I know them because of soccer. They have a team called the Foles.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, it's got
he was born in 1883 in Germany.
Yeah, and died in 1967 in New York.
Okay. Must be a writer or a poet.
That probably won't help you. But here we go. Ready for this? Here's a little hint for you.
Yeah.
Kelly, at your core, you are a powerhouse. But I know you really are a reformer. I hope you've enjoyed this exercise.
So I immediately think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I know he's still alive and he's Austrian, so it's not him. But at your core, so something to do with the core, you're a reformer. And I hope you've enjoyed. Say that one more time for me.
At your core, you're a powerhouse, but I know you really are a reformer. I hope you've enjoyed this exercise.
It's not Richard Simmons, is it?
No. Died in 1967.
Died in 67.
His name is kind of synonymous with a type of exercise that you see today. Not really a type of exercise, more of a type of, you see studios that are this kind of studios, similar to yoga, maybe.
Okay. Is this Franz von Bar?
No, but that's a good guess, and you're right. Kind of around. Wow, I didn't know that you knew that guy's first name. That was pretty impressive. Are you just making that up?
Yeah.
Did you really just make that up?
I don't know. I all I know is bar is similar to yoga,
and it's probably French too.
Yeah.
Got
any more clues?
Well, we're not talking about Pontius from the Bible today.
We're talking about Pilates.
Yes, Joseph Pilates.
I had no idea there was a Joseph Pilates.
There's a Joe Pilates.
Joe P.
We're going to talk about Joe Pilates today. So I don't know. Do you have any experience with Pilates at all? Do you know anything about Pilates?
No, I know they bend your body in weird positions. There's all kinds. This is my perception of Pilates. It is what that Frankel woman, that skinny girl vodka woman would do. It's sort of for thin and wealthy and perhaps from New York women.
Okay, well, that's actually interesting that you'd have that stereotype. That's actually not true. I have been doing Pilates for probably 15 years. I'm a big devotee of Pilates.
Okay.
And I'm none of those things that you just said.
Hold on. Nope. Yeah, you're right.
Wow. Okay. Well, let me tell you about Joe Pilates. So Do you know, when you picture Pilates, do you know what the reformer machine is? Can you picture any of the apparatus or any of the equipment that they use in
I'm
Pilates?
imagining something that looks like big wooden things hanging from the ceiling. No, I really don't know much about Pilates.
So the big one, and the clue that you didn't get was the reformer. So this is one of the problems with being into it, is that I assume everybody kind of knows about it. So it'll be fun today to let you know about it. But the reformer is this machine that sits on the floor, and it kind of is about the same size of a yoga mat. What do you call it? Like
Spikes?
no, it has a carriage that moves back and forth, and you'd sit on that, and it has springs attached to the carriage to give you resistance. So
Oh.
you can move back and forth on that, and then it has straps coming from it that you can attach your arms and legs to, and doing a variety of things with the resistance of that.
Is this sort of like those little rollers that you have with your hands and you roll forward and backwards for your core?
I mean, that is the same philosophy behind it. Sure.
Okay.
This machine that I'm explaining to you, and the reason I'm explaining to you is because later on like if you can picture this now, it'll make more sense later when I'm explaining how he kind of came up with that. But that's called the reformer, and that's kind of
Reformer.
but you could do Pilates like without any equipment. You can just do mat exercises using this, but it's basically all about the core.
Well, first of all, Pilates to me sounds like an Italian name, not a German name. So that was a little confusing.
So his father was actually from Greece.
Oh,
He
okay.
grew up in
Greek name.
Germany, but his father was from Greece, and his
Okay.
father was actually a gymnast and metal worker. You know, that old combination.
Did he make shingles?
No. But Pilates, when he was growing up, he actually was what you'd call a sickly child. And it seems like a lot of people that we talk about were sickly.
And he was very smart, but did poorly in school, right?
I don't know anything about his intelligence, actually. But growing up, he had asthma. He had rickets. Do you know what rickets is?
Oh no, that sounds very painful, though.
It's like, one of these old timey diseases that, luckily,
you had to get leeches to get rid of rickets.
Cod liver oil is the treatment for that, but it's not that common in the U.S. or Europe anymore. But that's like a lack of vitamin D and lack of calcium, and it would give kids weak bones. He also had rheumatic fever. Rheumatic fever is also one of those old timey diseases, but usually it's what you might get if you don't treat strep throat.
You'd get the rheumatic fever.
Still today, if you have strep throat and you don't do anything about it, you just let it ride and you don't take any antibiotics, it could develop into rheumatic fever. So he had all these things. He was also bullied. And at the age of 5, some say he lost sight in his left eye because of that. Now, some also say that was later from a boxing mishap, because he did box fighting, not not where somebody takes their hands and puts them on your ears like Mr. Edison.
Right.
But because he grew up such a sick child, he devoted his life to improving physical strength. So he was really into gymnastics like his dad. He was really into bodybuilding, martial arts, boxing, but he didn't do a lot of weight training. And pretty much every site you go to find out about Joseph Pilates, it says a variation of this quote. By the age of 14, he was fit enough to pose for anatomical charts.
That's hashtag goals, right?
It's kind of disturbing to me that I don't know.
So when you're in a doctor's office and you see a chart up on the wall, it could be Pilates.
Well, yeah, but it just bothers me that somebody would come up to a 14-year-old boy and say, "Hey, boy, you look fit enough to pose for an anatomical chart." Just doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, that could get you arrested.
But he always had this idea that the modern lifestyle, and this is modern, the turn of the century is what we're talking about, was to blame for the poor health that we'd see from people, particularly when it came to poor posture. And he thought poor posture from people sitting at desks and inefficient breathing. I mean, this was, the Industrial Revolution around, the time of all that, and inefficient breathing. So he thought that modern lifestyle, imagine how different life was at the turn of the century than it was, 50 years previous.
Well, and imagine if he could see us today, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
he'd say, "Told you."
Yeah. So he designed a series of exercises and a series of equipment or apparatus to help people, and he was doing good. By 1912, he moved to England. Now, here's something that I didn't realize until I was doing research for this, but a lot of Germans moved to Britain around this time, around the 1910s, just prior to World War One. Things were getting pretty restrictive in Germany, and Europe, and particularly England, was a pretty liberal place where you could kind of do your own thing. So a lot of Germans were coming over. So he moved to England, and he was a pro boxer. He was also a circus performer.
Wow.
He had a gladiator act with his brother, and he taught self-defense classes at Scotland Yard. So when I saw this, that he was a circus performer, and I thought, well, yeah, this is around the same time as Harry Houdini, right? So I Googled if Pilates and Harry Houdini know each other. And what I got was a quote from a comedian, Dwayne Perkins, that said, "Let's just say if Houdini did Pilates, he would have survived that sucker punch to his belly." So there's a callback to
Nice.
episode 3. So as I mentioned, a lot of Germans were moving to Britain at the turn of the century. And so by 1911, there were 50,000 German immigrants in Britain. Most of them were in the service industry, and they had kind of their own neighborhoods and their own clubs and their own newspapers. But then when World War One started in 1914, there was a lot of suspicion of Germans in Britain. In fact, they made them, a lot of them thought, a lot of British people thought that Germans could be spies.
Sure.
And they would, so they had started really cracking down on German citizens, really some ugly stuff. They had a law where you had to register with the police, and you couldn't move more than 5 miles. You couldn't move around more than 5 miles from where you lived. They shut down all the German clubs, all the German newspapers, all the German businesses. The government forced them to shut down. And then, probably worst of all, they put all the males that were of military age that were German in internment camps. Did not know this.
Yeah, what a reoccurring, a very unfortunate reoccurring thing that has happened, so many times.
And when I say military age, I mean between the ages of 17 and 55. So basically all the men that were German had to be put in these prisons, basically camps, right?
In England,
England.
In England. Wow.
One of the biggest ones was a camp called Knockalow. It's actually on the Isle of Man. Have you ever heard of the Isle of Man? Do you know where that is?
Yeah.
It's between Britain and Ireland. It's an island out in between those two. And so they had 23,000 people in that camp at one time, German men. And that camp is still, it's a tourist attraction today. You can go and kind of see what they had to go through. I would love to check that out.
Did Pilates get sent there?
Yeah. So first he got sent to this place called Lancaster Castle. They'd put him in a lot of these old castles, and he taught wrestling and self-defense. I mean, it wasn't like extermination camp. They weren't killing Germans.
No, it was just they wanted to hold them in case they were spies, or in case,
right,
because they were at war with Germany.
Right. So they'd have to do something while they were there. So he taught wrestling and he taught self-defense. And during that time, he was studying yoga. He would get books and he'd study yoga, but he would also study animal movement. He was especially intrigued with the movement of cats. So he would lie in the woods for hours, hiding and watching animals move and looking and see how the mother taught the young. He would do that when he was a kid. He would do that while he was in these camps. He would just kind of look and see how animals moved. And this is where he started his mat exercises. And he didn't call it Pilates. He called it Contrology. Contrology. And the idea was to use the mind to control your muscles and focus on the core. Now, when we talk about the core, which is also called the powerhouse, they're synonymous.
Okay.
We talk about the core. you usually are thinking about the abs, right? And it's actually the abs, the lower back, and the hips. It's everything that can kind of keep you from being injured. And if you concentrate on strengthening the core, you can really avoid injury, especially in your old age. Even just moving around doing stupid things like, tying your shoes or buckling your seatbelt. If you
Oh
don't have a
yeah.
strong core, that can result in injury. And it's the big reason that I still do Pilates. Just make sure that I don't get hurt doing something stupid. Um, and Pilates is a little different than yoga because it's more like a workout than yoga is, and it's less about the spirituality and the breathing. But some of the poses are the same. For example, the plank. You'll find, doing a plank you'll find that in
Yeah.
both yoga and Pilates. So he was sent to the Isle of Man, that Nakalo camp, and it was there he was working in the infirmary, the hospital,
Yeah.
and he said, "Can I work with these people? Can I make them?" He thought that his exercises would make people healthy,
And these are German men that are
they're just
there
in the
in the
hospital.
infirmary, and he's
They're just
he's
sick.
wanting to help them out.
And they said, you can do anything you want with them as long as they stay in bed. Because at the time, the kind of the conventional wisdom on hospitals was that bed rest was the cure to everything.
Okay. And leeches.
You need to have bed rest. So they say you can do anything as you want with these people as long as they stay in bed. So with that kind of parameter, he invented what I just explained to you as the reformer. He used out of a hospital bed. He had springs, and he made the carriage thing, and he basically made this reformer exercise machine out of a hospital bed. And technically, he was letting them stay in bed, even though he was inventing this exercise machine. Isn't that cool?
To make their core stronger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, at the time, he was focusing on the whole thing, the Contrology, all of it, the controlling the muscles in the core. But yeah, he was trying to make them healthier. And
by the way, I just want to say Contrology. If I was ever going to be a professional DJ, that would be my DJ name. DJ
I was going to say
Contrology.
it does sound like kind of a prog rock album from back in the day, like Steely Dan. Did you get the 1978 Contrology album from Steely Dan?
Right.
Double album. But in 1918 they had the Spanish flu, that a lot of people compared COVID to, and it was the pandemic. Not a single person in this camp that Pilates was in got the Spanish flu.
Wow.
Which was kind of a big deal if you compare it to COVID. It's like going around everywhere. And he, I think, attributed a lot of that to him.
He thought because these people were strong,
because he was, even the ones that were sick, he was preventing them from getting the Spanish flu. Actually, it might have been because they were isolated on an island.
Yeah. I was going to say they were on an island.
Completely quarantined from the rest of the world. But if the Spanish flu had come to that island, it would have ripped through. And who knows if it would have had any effect. But if you compare it to how things are today, I mean, everyone's looking for kind of a secret to making them, immune from the pandemic. And he thought he had it in Contrology.
Well, so a question, I mean, and I guess maybe you're going to, as you continue the story, you might cover this, but why is it that my perception of this art and this type of exercise, which is now called Pilates, is that it's skinny, wealthy white women, and it turned out it was maybe all different types of body types of
because it was just sick German men.
Yeah, like why? How did it change from? Because you generally think of German men as being pretty macho and pretty manly, and let's roll in the mud and kill some animals and wear antlers on our head. I mean, that's the kind of thing I think of like early 1900s German men doing.
Sure.
And now it's who goes to Pilates? It's soccer moms.
Well, the exercise didn't even really become that popular in the U.S. as something that people did for a
Maybe the
while.
50s.
You think of the Three Stooges when they would have that machine that they'd hook up with that would move
Around the
their
waist.
stomachs. Yeah,
Yeah, that would kind of wiggle back and forth. That was exercise.
that's kind of exercise. And then Jack LaLanne, in the 60s and 70s, and then the Jane Fonda, and they would always, and then the running boom, right? We'd kind of always had these
late 70s, early 80s,
these different phases. Probably had something to do with. I don't think Pilates, as we know it today, was ever like it is today. I mean, he died in 1968, so I don't think he ever got to see it take off the way it is. I think things like bar and yoga, even, and Pilates, even though these things have been around a long time, I think studios where they can have rich white women kind of.
Well, now there's goat yoga, right?
Yeah,
You've heard of goat yoga,
sure. And you had the Bikram yoga with the hot yoga.
Yeah,
and, there's
actually, I will say I've done the Bikram yoga, and the thing about that is it does. First of all, you sweat like crazy, which I think is good for you to sweat. Sometimes to really sweat hard and get all your pores cleared out and everything, toxins out. But also, that heat sort of loosens up your muscles, right? So you have more ability to stretch because everything is kind of looser and warmer versus like trying to just do it from cold.
Now, if you wanted to do if you maybe future episode of Bikram yoga, that Bikram was a son of a bitch, right?
I don't know anything about him.
He was a scam artist that
really,
was really a bad guy. But we have a Bikram yoga that is now a Mod Pizza, and every time we pass it, my wife makes the same joke about how they didn't have to move the ovens,
and how it probably smells the same.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll have to add that next time.
It smells like pepperoni in here. Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know why you have that perception, but probably because it's a technique that you can have in a studio and you can teach it, and it has it's pretty simple to but it's also effective. It totally.
Wait, is it simple? You kind of trailed off. You said it's pretty simple too, and then you didn't finish that statement, because I've always heard that actually Pilates is pretty complicated.
I think it has basic principles to it. The basic principles are like breathing, concentration, control, centering, precision, flow, movement, balance. Those are some of the basic principles. Now you can get pretty complex on those like you can with any kind of exercise, and yoga included, right? I mean, anyone can do a cat cow or a child's pose in yoga, but to then advance to some of the more advanced moves, But I think it's easy to learn, and it's stepwise,
Easy to learn, difficult to master, one of those kind of things.
Yeah, sure. And I think it's one of those things that there's no official certification. Like Pilates, the courts ruled in, I think, 2000 that there is no proprietary thing called Pilates.
So I could open a Pilates studio tomorrow.
You could, and there's no such thing
with goats,
right?
And skinny white girls.
Sure. If you want to throw away your money, I think that'd be a bad business idea.
Well, so going back to the subject of our story, did he eventually get out of the internment camp?
Yes. So those camps closed at the end of the war. So they were open from about 1914 to about 1918. He went
4 years. Wow.
He went back to Germany, and in Germany he started collaborating with dancers.
Okay.
Dancers, and then he was training police officers. Those were his two markets.
Wow, pretty different. I mean, I guess I'm immediately, my mind goes to female ballet dancers, again, skinny.
But that's who we're talking about: female ballet dancers, and then police officers. And he was training both. He would train police officers. I mean, this guy was a boxer, so he had kind of looked like a tough guy. So he got acceptance from them. But then, by 1925, things in Germany were not looking great. If you weren't happy with the politics in Germany, you didn't see any need to stay there. So he went to the U.S., and he actually met his future companion. I don't think they were ever actually married, but they were together for 40 years. So let's call it his wife, his future wife, on the ship on the way to New York.
Huh.
It's kind of a great way to meet somebody when you're about to start a new life.
Yeah. Hey, you're going to America? Me too.
And then they were together for the rest of his life. Isn't that
Yeah.
cool? They actually founded a studio in New York City, and he taught there until the 1960s.
Wow.
Now, the dancers in New York really loved this studio. They started going there and learning Contrology because it built flexibility, it built stamina, it built strength, all those things that you really need as dancers. Well, then society women, and maybe these are the skinny white girls that you're talking about, society women found out that this is where the dancers were going, and they came too and wanted to get, look like these dancers.
Manoiva. Have you heard?
bet.
All the dancers are going there. Yeah, we should go there too.
Is that your 1920s New York woman?
If it's good enough for a dancer, it's good enough for me, I say.
That's a new character you're working on?
Yeah. Her I don't know her name, but her friend's name is Minerva.
Okay.
Manoiva.
Well, you can imagine that if this was the place that dancers were going to get flexible, to get strong, to get their flexibility, and this is where all the women needed to be. So he had a nice little studio going on here. And
do you know the name of it?
Oh, I don't. I think it might have been just called Pilates or Contrology. I mean, Contrology was the thing that everyone
Studio Contrology.
I mean, it was him and his wife that did this. But here's the irony of all this: is during all this time, he was actually not a very healthy dude. He thought he was healthy, but he was a very heavy drinker. In fact, so much so that a lot of these dance companies wouldn't let him around anymore. His drinking was out of control, and he was a very heavy cigar smoker.
Wow!
And today, those things just don't go together. But
I just can't imagine a very heavy cigar, because that's just gonna be really hard to keep.
Back in the 50s and 60s, we didn't exactly have that connection between health and smoking.
No, it was just something people did.
Professional athletes endorse cigarettes.
Sure.
And doctors, you can find Marlboro ads with testimonials from doctors.
Yeah, they help you lose weight, and they control your stress
and relaxes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he but now his wife said that he turned to the drinking and smoking because he was upset that he never got the respect from the medical community that he deserved, and that upset him. So he kind of went on these benders but he's a very heavy smoker and actually died of emphysema. Now he was 83. So,
I mean, that's, even if you were healthy, you could die of emphysema at 83. That would be acceptable.
Yeah. But when you think of somebody that's so synonymous with like health or the health craze or fitness craze, dying of emphysema because he smoked too much, that just is a little ironic. Today, though, 10 million people just in the U.S. alone participate in Pilates every year. He thought it was the cure for a lot of different things. Maybe it's not the cure for all those things that he thought it would be, but it is great for core strength. It's great for avoiding injury. It's great for posture, flexibility, balance, coordination, anxiety. I mean,
I have heard that if you do it and you do it regularly, it can greatly improve your flexibility, your ability to not get injured. Even I think just the stretching parts of it are probably some of the more important. It's kind of what yoga is. A lot of that is flexibility and stretching and keeping those areas open so you get proper blood flow, because you're improving your blood flow, which means that your red blood cells get to places to heal faster, white blood cells, etc. I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about, but
no, you're right. And
flexibility
is really important in athletics too. And a lot of football players are turning to Pilates to help them reduce injuries and increase flexibility. The thing about flexibility is the stronger you get, the less flexible you are. So without Pilates, you're almost guaranteed to get injured if you become stronger and stronger and stronger. You're just losing flexibility. So by just doing things like improving the flexibility of your hips, um, just that tightness that you get in your muscles, this really helps people. And people that do Pilates that are football players are famously kind of injury free.
Yeah.
And swear by it. It turns out that Pilates is every bit as important as time in the weight room. Prior to this research, I had heard a lot about how Pilates had never lifted a weight in his life. I hadn't seen any evidence about that. I mean, the idea that he was a bodybuilder in his younger years, I find it hard to believe that he never lifted any weights. And instead of using, I mean, it's all about resistance, right? In weight, in strength training, it's all about resistance. So whether you're using springs or weights, it's giving you the same.
Or your own body weight, right?
Right.
Isn't a lot of it just your own body weight?
Yeah. So if you do a plank, for example, or
push-ups.
Do you know what hundreds are? Have you ever done hundreds?
No.
You know what that is?
No.
That's where you kind of picture. This is what I was afraid of with this episode, was going to describe a lot of these
Pilates
poses
moves
for you. So the hundreds are, it's kind of the most basic move where imagine your head and neck are off the ground. Your legs are also off the ground, right? You're on a mat.
Are you on your back or on your front?
Yeah, you're on your back. And then your arms are out to the side, but they're straight, and you're pumping them up and down. Okay. And you do it 100 times, I think is why they started.
So you're just basically almost doing like a tiny little sit-up, but barely moving.
You're not moving anything but your arms. So you're kind of in that.
But you're lifting your legs off the ground.
No, but your legs are staying off the ground.
Yeah, I'm saying they're lifted up. Like you're engaging you have to engage your abs to lift your legs off the ground, like 6 inches. But your legs aren't.
Well, no, actually, you're supposed to have them kind of jackknifed.
Oh,
so you're like a V shape, basically, right?
Okay.
So any kind of mat exercises that you see, like V sits or hundreds or roll ups or sit ups or all this kind of stuff is kind of derived from Pilates, where you're just engaging your core.
Wow. Did he have any children?
He did have children and didn't bring them to New York. Kind of went to New York by himself and stayed there. I think his wife had died in around the time that he went to the camps.
Oh, and so he was married twice.
He was married twice. He had married right before he went to the camps, and then I think his wife died, and then his kids didn't come with him.
So somewhere there might be Pilates kids somewhere.
Well, I read that his niece is kind of carrying the torch of the exercise Pilates torch, although she says that they used to pronounce it Pilates. But that never.
Well, Pilates sounds a lot more.
You can't change it now.
You can't charge $200 an hour for something called Pilates.
So your perception of this is that it's just kind of a fad.
No. I think it's difficult. Like I've heard that it is quite difficult, especially when you're starting. It's challenging, physically challenging. I think it was sort of a fad. I mean, I feel like I started hearing about it maybe 10, 15 years ago. Like it is when it became, sort of mainstream, popular. Because yoga is ancient, right? Yoga came from the yogis, and it's been around for thousands of years. Pilates, or Pilates as the wealthy call it, I don't feel like I had ever heard of that. When did you first hear about it? You had never heard of it in high school, had you?
I don't think so.
But you had heard of yoga.
Yeah. I always found yoga to be intimidating, and also my perception of yoga was that it wasn't it was different than exercise, or it's different than working out.
Well,
Whereas Pilates, you could incorporate with a workout, and that yoga was more spiritual, even though a lot of the stuff is exactly the same.
Well, okay, so I've probably done 50 yoga classes in my life. And that's because my wife likes to go, and we did have a Bikram yoga place near our office that a whole group of us went to for like a year, like every other week or something. So my experience with yoga is that it is a lot of stretching. It's a lot of kind of like getting into these positions where you're stretching muscles and it really kind of hurts. You're holding things like planks, but not as much. Um but no, I mean it was about breathing, and it was sort of, there was a little bit of a sort of hippy dippy vibe to it as far as, breathe in the love and breathe out the jive kind of thing. But
meditation, guided meditation.
No, not as much. I mean, I would walk out of pretty much any yoga class I've ever done, walk out feeling like I had a workout.
Oh,
now,
really?
was it like a hit session, or hit what do they call it? Hit trainings, like boot camp kind of workout? No, but it was definitely a workout. And my understanding was Pilates was even the next level. It was like taking it a little bit further.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably fair to say. I mean, you'd leave a Pilates session with really sore
sweating.
hands.
So you asked earlier if I thought Pilates sounded or seemed like a fad, and I would say it's not a fad in that it's going to be gone, but I feel like it had some buzz around it 10 years ago. It was kind of a big thing, and then I think bar became the thing that became more popular to do. The studios that were opening up and becoming popular and charging more money, and then even during the pandemic, if you'll recall, Peloton, right? The stationary bicycle, the Peloton, that's been around for a long time, but Peloton made it really, really popular and sort of almost this cultish kind of thing, because we bought a Peloton, ironically, before the pandemic. We happened to have got one. Jody had always wanted one. She used to do a lot of spin classes at the gym. So we got one so she could do them here. It worked out great because she did them. But I just remember listening to the instructors, and I couldn't stand it. It was very, I don't know, it felt very disingenuous. That's the big thing with me with some of that, what might be considered guided meditation or positive reinforcement. I feel like this person doesn't know me. They're telling me I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, all that sort of thing. And I think on a surface level that works, and it sort of helps your brain. If you say it to yourself, you'll start to believe it. But on the flip side of it, it always felt very disingenuous to me. I'd rather have somebody give me a good hard workout without the pep talk, but maybe a little bit of pep talk at the end. Like, hey, you did a great job, you're getting better, that sort of thing, versus, you hate yourself. Well, you shouldn't hate yourself. Well, I don't hate myself. I don't need to know about all these things I should be letting go of, because there aren't any for me, or not very many. I guess I sound like a grumpy old white dude, but
maybe we should start a company where we bring back that Three Stooges machine, and
we have medicine balls.
But we have the thing that you put around your waist, and then we have, but like in a more modern way, like Peloton, where we have an instructor screaming at you while you're doing it.
They're going, what would that even sound like?
What are those machines called? I mean, all they do is just vibrate you.
Yeah, they just shake you. They're supposed to. I don't know. People thought they could lose weight from them. So we took a tour of a castle one time, and this person who had founded it the person who had built it was, his last name was Bourne. I can't remember his first name, but he was the person who invented the Singer sewing machine, or he was the CEO of the Singer sewing machine company. Maybe it was Singer. Bourne. No.
Sounds like a future episode to me.
His daughter lived in the castle for a period of time, and there was an exercise room, like from the early 1900s, and it had one of those machines.
Oh, it did?
Yeah, I've seen one in person, and it was the original one. It's been there the whole time. They never moved it out.
It had a belt, right?
It had a belt with the vibrating thing. She also had this device that you got into that had light bulbs in it. Kind of a shout back to Edison, but it was like a coffin thing that opened sort of vertically. You went in it, and then it closed around you like a clamshell, and then you turned on these light bulbs, and that was supposed to be good for you for some reason.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
So maybe our business idea is to open a exercise studio that uses old fashioned methods in a modern way.
Oh yeah. Email us if you would subscribe to something like that.
If you join for $65 a month, unlimited classes in the Texas area, we would open it in Bastrop, right? So we both have to drive to get there.
So according to Wikipedia, the other, besides the reformer, the other apparatuses that Pilates invented were one, and it doesn't have links to any of these, so I can't really see what they actually are. One of them is called the Cadillac. One of them is called the Wunda chair.
Oh, sounds very German. Wunda
chair. The high electric chair, and electric is in quotes. High electric chair.
I wonder if that's the thing with the light bulbs in it.
The spine corrector. It sounds like a WWE move.
Yeah,
spine corrector.
He just smashed him with a spine corrector.
The ladder barrel and the pedipole.
Wow.
Pedipole.
Yeah. I mean, those are things that probably, like you said, were allowed the person to stay in a laying down position per the instructions. You can do whatever you want with them. Just don't take them out of bed.
It's just funny because I don't use the reformer anymore. I don't use any of the, I use all the mat stuff. You don't need apparatus. I think from his perspective, though, it made it more proprietary, right? If you have to buy this machine to do it, otherwise I'm just teaching a bunch of exercise. How could I possibly make any money off of that? You got to buy the equipment too. That's the only way to make money off of it.
Yeah, and I guess if you're thinking about franchising this and you wanted people to buy the equipment as part of their franchise deal,
but he never did that. That's the thing, is that now Pilates,
he never opened any other studios and never licensed it. It was just the one in New York, huh?
Right. So now you can definitely take classes on how to be a Pilates instructor, but there is no certification or anything like that. The way there is with most things now that most new equipment. It's too bad because there's just so many variations of it. Just to give you an idea, I went to a Google search and it would say, what are the 6 principles of Pilates? And then somebody else would say, what are the 7? And so you'd see a studio in California. So these are the 6 principles of Pilates. You'd see another studio say, these are the 7 principles of Pilates. And you see another one, these are the 8, these are the 9, these are the 10.
Classic East Coast, West Coast thing, right? It's like different styles of rap.
Everybody's got their different number, but there is no kind of franchise way of doing official one-way certification that's accepted by like a Pilates organization right now. They're kind of all over the place.
The NPO.
But in a way, also, it's a little more important that now his name is so big that any kind of core exercise can be referred to as Pilates. Like, he's cornered that term. Yeah,
it's become like Xerox. It's just become where you use the proper name instead of the let's have a Zoom call or let's sell it on eBay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you might sell it on a different platform, but you still eBay it or
yeah. So I hope you learned a little bit about Pilates today.
I learned a lot because I didn't know much to begin with.
Next time you are having your abs hurt, maybe
they hurt right now from all the laughing.
Next time you hurt yourself trying to put on your seatbelt, maybe think about maybe trying to do a Pilates session or something.
Okay, I will. Hopefully, let's do one together.
All right, man.
Would that be weird?
Well, that was Joseph Pilates.
Next time I look at an anatomical chart, I'll think of him.
Of a 14-year-old boy.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye.